Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Kamek, and this video is going to be pretty different because it's not in your workbook. I just thought it would be a good idea to have one of each the add, subtract, multiply, divide equations problems and see if you could figure out how to solve them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up an equation problem, and I want you, if you want, to either pause it and write it down or just kind of like, guess what the first step would be. We're going to go in a random order here. So I'm going to do one, add, subtract, multiply, divide, but I'm going to go in different orders, and I'm going to have you, kind of pause and think about it as I go. Okay, so the first problem I'm going to give you is negative 3x equals negative 39. Okay, I want you to figure out, first of all, is this an add, subtract, multiply, divide? It's either going to be an add, subtract problem, or it's going to be a multiply, divide problem. Okay, hopefully you knew that this one was a multiply divide problem. Negative 3x means negative 3 times a number gives us negative 39. And since this is multiply, we are going to use the inverse to solve. We're going to divide. Okay, so we know that we're going to get x by itself. In order to get x by itself, we have to divide both sides by the same number. And I want to get rid of the negative 3. When you divide by negative 3, you end up with positive 1. Because of our last unit, negative 3 divided by negative 3 gives us positive 1x. And then we do the same thing on the other side. And if you have your calculator, you now know you can use your calculator. If not, you can still do this off to the side. Negative 39 divided by negative 3, that will also give us a positive answer, and it is positive 13. Okay, and then you don't really need the 1x. You won't see it like that as often. It's not wrong, but you just won't see it like that. So that's your answer. You want to box it. And then you want to do the check. A lot of kids think that the check, is just kind of like an extra step for you to do, and like maybe your teacher's trying to punish you, but I promise that's not the case. The point of the check is to see if you got the answer right or wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the wrong answer in here so you can see what happens when you get the wrong answer. A lot of kids probably think that this one is negative 13. So watch what happens if I plug in negative 13 for x. Because remember, the check, you rewrite it exactly how it was, except you just plug in your answer. Okay, now with your calculator, I want you to carefully write in negative 3 times negative 13. And if you do that, you will see that that is actually positive 39. However, I wanted it to equal negative 39. So that tells me that something went wrong. Okay, that was for someone who got the wrong answer. When we did our work over to the left here, we got the right answer of x equals 13. Let's plug in 13 and now see what negative 3 times 13 is. And yes, that is negative 39. So I promise that the reason I'm having you do the check is because I really want you to get the right answer. Okay, so that was a multiplication problem, so we divided to answer. Remember, those are called inverse operations. Okay, on the next problem. Y minus 7 equals negative 10. Okay, so a number minus 7 gives me negative 10. If you want to write it down, pause it, and try it, great. If you just want to watch me solve it to see an example, you can do that too. Okay, so I want to get rid of the minus 7 because my goal is to get y by itself, so I have to get rid of the minus 7. To get rid of the minus 7, I'm going to plus 7 on both sides of the equal. Remember, it's like a scale or a balance. We have to keep it balanced. If I add 7 to one side, I've got to add 7 to the other. So this cancels. You can put an X, a line. Then I just have y on the left side of the equals. And on the right side, you have to be careful. Negative 10 plus 7 is negative 3. Then we do our check, and when you do the check, you have to go all the way back to the very beginning, the original problem, and then plug in what you think the answer is. I think that negative 3 minus 7 is negative 10. Plug that into your calculator. Actually type that into your calculator. Okay, and you get negative 10 and that is equal to negative 10. So I know I got the answer right. Okay, how about another one? 5 equals 8 plus, we'll call it C. Okay, now this one, two things here. The variable is on the right side of the equal sign, and it's the number plus the variable. So a couple things look a little awkward here, except for the fact that I know I still want to get this by itself, so this is what's attached to it. It's 8 plus C, so I know it's an add subtract one. How do I get rid of this number here? How do I get rid of this 8? Well, you have to know that it's a positive 8, and to get rid of it, and when I say get rid of it, we're talking about canceling it or making it equal to 0. So you have to subtract 8 on both sides. Okay? And when I do 5 minus 8, I get 3, and C is 3. Are we done? I bet you wish you were done. And this is what I'm going to do. I wonder how many of you have already figured out that maybe your math teacher is doing something on purpose here. 5 equals 8 plus 3. Do you know that I've seen kids write this? They go, oh, 8 plus 3. They either just leave it like that or they write 11 equals 11. I think sometimes kids are doing the check just so that they have something written down, but I can see what you're doing here. This part right here, this is still 5 and this is 11. What in the world went wrong? If 5 is equal to 11, I know that that's not true. Where is my mistake? 5 minus 8 over here, this is not equal to 3. Many kids think that 8 minus 5 is the same as 5 minus 8. But if you have $8 and spend 5, you still have 3 left. If you only have $5 and you spend 8, and yes, that's possible. All you have to do is ask your parents about debit cards and credit cards and things like that. If you have $5 and you spend 8, well then you are in debt $3 or you owe $3. So you have to be very careful. This is negative 3, and now I can go back to my check and fix it. 8 plus negative 3. And 8 plus negative 3 in your calculator or on the number line is equal to a positive 5. So the point, what I'm trying to explain to you is when you do the check, you are trying to figure out, is your answer right or wrong? It's okay if the check isn't making sense. If the check isn't making sense, it's because you probably made a small error over here and you just have to go back and try your work again and try to figure out what went wrong. We were able to quickly realize that 5 minus 8 wasn't 3, it's negative 3. Okay, the last problem here. $10 equals x over negative 5. 10 equals x over negative 5. Okay, what do you think we do to both sides? And with equations, you're always doing something to both sides. And for this one, it is going to be multiply by negative 5 on both sides. Multiply by negative 5 on both sides. And here's why. If you have a number times negative 5, let me get rid of the double x here. Hopefully you're seeing why the multiplication symbol we don't use as much. If you multiply something by negative 5 and then divide something by negative 5, you're going to end up with just that number. Pick any number. If you multiply it by negative 5 and then divide it by negative 5, you'll get right back where you started. And so that's why this negative 5 over negative 5, it cancels and it just equals positive x. On the left side, though, I have negative 5 times 10, and you know that they have different signs, so for multiply and divide, it is a negative answer. Okay, when you do the check, you always write the original equation, just like it was. Then you plug in just the variable, which we think is negative 50. And now in your calculator, go ahead and solve this. Go ahead and solve negative 50 divided by negative 5. And yes, same signs, positive answer, positive 10 equals positive 10. So I know that that's my answer. Okay, if you want to slide back and re-watch any of them, it might be helpful to find one of these that looks similar to a problem that you have on your homework or on any of your future one-step equation problems. Thank you. Bye-bye.